man, like going fast nowhere. I'm getting in my car. I'm going to drive 90 miles an hour. And I said, to where? I don't know. I'm just going fast. It's like, it doesn't make sense. So I think most companies actually struggle with where to go, not speed. A lot of these companies, you can give them all the productivity you want. Ain't going to build anything. What are you going to build? You're going to build a clone of your competitor? You're an insurance company. What are you going to do? You're going to build what you already have faster? Like literally, it's like, where are you going? And I think that's the part where people forget, like, where are you going? So going fast doesn't matter if you're not going anywhere. And so once you kind of dial that in, then it's like, okay, what's the thing that makes the most impact actually? So some people's like, more code makes more impact. Like, more code creates more liabilities, creates more attack surfaces, more things to manage. So what I'm trying to do and what I tried to do throughout my career is like, what's the minimal amount of work I can do to make the biggest impact?
5 years ago, I was sitting in this same room recording episode 5 of this podcast. I was a brand new host. I was incredibly nervous and I was trying to find my voice in the tech world. And honestly, maybe I still am. But my guest that day was someone who had already become a legend for his ability to bridge the gap between complex code and human understanding. And he gave me the chance when I was just starting out, and it's an honor to say that he's back with us today. Most of you know him as the distinguished engineer from Google, the man who taught the world Kubernetes, the master of the live demo. And lately, he's also transitioned into a new chapter, one that's focusing less on the mechanics of infrastructure and more on the philosophy of being not only a senior engineer, but also being a senior human. He's a self-proclaimed minimalist, a tech philosopher, and perhaps the most intentional leader in our industry. He's here to talk about leadership with empathy, building communities with integrity, and the art of staying balanced in a world that always wants more. So please welcome back to the show, Kelsey Hightower.
The best intro ever.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Thanks. As I said, it's been a while. Thanks for coming on. And I know that now, since I talked to you, you're technically retired. You've described yourself as retired but not tired. I love that. And you're not exactly like coding for money now or representing a cloud giant like Google. What has been the most surprising thing you've learned about yourself when you no longer have this distinguished engineer title?
Life's fine. Life is totally fine. I mean, jobs are, if you're working, it's good to do the best work you possibly can. It's good to have goals, but it's also good to understand that life is more than that. And so I think for me, understanding, and I kind of knew that when you make the decision to retire, hopefully that's part of the calculus. And it's true, right? So after it's almost 3 years now, we're getting closer to the 3-year mark of being retired, that I can, definitely vouch for. You can set your own goals that are not related to anyone's corporate agenda, and it's fine. The world's a very big place. There's so many other things to do. But also, I'm surprised that I still pay attention to what's going on in the technology landscape, because I really don't have a financial reason to. I can kind of step away from it and just let it go, but I'm still interested in this stuff. It's still something that I'm curious about, so I kind of stay on top of things. So yeah, it still works out.
Yeah, it's nice to still be involved. You still go to KubeCon every year, right? And you're still pretty involved with that. So even though you're retired, what does your role look like?
One thing that I really appreciate about this chapter is people kind of respect my philosophy on technology. So it's less about how to use something like Kubernetes, for example. It's more about the bigger picture. Like, how should we be building things? Should we be building things at all? Is this the right set of tools? And even more importantly, what tools should exist? I think some people are in the wait and see mode. Like, hey, what are the vendors going to give us next that we get to use? And I just don't really come from that world, right? A big part of my career comes from the open source world where you make the tools you want to exist. So it's great that we see companies like NVIDIA and OpenAI building all these amazing tools for us, but that's just one input of the tool chain. So I think a lot of people now want to hear from me is like, what philosophy do I have around those things? So I'm less in I can't wait to use more AI tools for my job. It's more like I'm thinking, what tools should we build? That's one idea. Are there others?
Yeah, and I want to get into that, but on that topic, and I'm focusing on tools or also just focusing too much on simply technical skills. there's this idea that you'll end up as a senior engineer, but not a senior human being. And so for the technical leaders listening, what are the, for lack of a better term, unit tests that you need to have for being a senior human?
Yeah, I think a lot of people that get into tech, if you just think about like the cycle, you go to high school, you kind of are graded based on your ability to remember and pass the test. You go to college, that becomes your North Star. Maybe you spend 4 years there, and then you get a job. And the whole time you're kind of being graded on things you can do on paper. And there's not a lot of tests. Like, what grade do you get for being kind to people? What grade do you get for your ability to actually influence others, make an impact with other people? That's not really graded. And a lot of companies don't grade that either. I mean, there are parts where that helps you, especially when you think about the political nature of being at a company. But most people can be an asshole and get promoted. Most people can make it where no junior person would ever succeed on their team just because of the way that they onboard people. And so what you end up with is you could be a principal engineer and be a terrible person to work. Like, absolutely terrible. Some projects fail simply because the people involved are terrible people. They can't explain what needs to happen. They don't know how to deal and process mistakes. Think about it. There are managers that cuss at employees. There are people who think of their manager as their boss. My manager told me to jump. I got to ask him how high. Like, well, doesn't make any sense. So I think when you think about progressing as a human and a technologist, you're thinking about like, okay, there's an emotional response people are going to have when it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be a bit of consensus required to get everyone to agree on something, even when we have competing great ideas. Getting someone to do something that you don't manage requires a whole different set of skills, right? You can try to go over their head and get them into trouble politically, and maybe they'll get fired. But there's another thing to tap into the thing that inspires someone to say, you know what? I understand what you're trying to build. I'm on board. And now they're emotionally attached to the thing. And even people that are good at something, when they don't really want to do it, it doesn't really come out all that great. But when they're excited about doing it, they're giving it their all. And I think their all includes that emotional component. I think that's when people tend to do their very best work, even if they've been doing something for a very long time.
Yeah, I've been blessed to have really great managers and like good people around me, but I know that that's not always the case for other people. And yeah, it seems a bit counterintuitive. If you have an excitement, you're sharing that, usually it works out better than, trying to force people to do things or use certain moves to coerce people into doing things. But you're right, it does happen a lot. And how do you think that this has changed with AI? How do you think that the importance of people skills has changed with the rise of AI?
Probably made it worse because the way people have been pouring resources into artificial intelligence, but then continue to ignore real intelligence. So think about it. Most people are like, oh, I want to write documentation. That stuff sucks, like training other people. Not really my job. Just kind of dive in and figure it out and as you go. But when it comes to AI, it's like, well, we need to write docs so the AI can have a specification. We need to give it prompts, but we need to be very clear. We need to give it context so it can do the right thing. Because if you give AI no context, you have no idea what's going to come out the other end. So we put all this effort into making sure we organize our repositories, we have docs, specifications, so our prompts can be very clear so that the artificial intelligence can do the best job possible. So I say, all right, swap out artificial intelligence for real intelligence. Got a real coworker, a real person. Wouldn't they benefit from docs? Wouldn't they benefit from getting to some semblance of clarity? I think they would. And it's not the complete narrative, but there is this narrative where you can reduce the number of people you need.
Mm-hmm.
And some would argue, well, most people don't produce excellence, right? These are all craftspeople. Some people are just kind of pumping out mediocre code, mediocre documentation. They're not really doing legendary work. They're just doing the bare minimum sometimes just to get by or to meet that Friday deadline. And the way we use AI, it can do that too. So if you're mediocre and AI is mediocre, we think that's a suitable replacement. You're out of here. That to me is not, I think there's another question to ask is like, why have we only given people the time and space to do mediocre work? 15 years of just mediocre work, crafting emails you don't want to write, sending them to people that don't want to read them, setting arbitrary deadlines like, I've never done this before. I'll have it done by Friday. And then you copying your paste and like, hey, it works good enough. It probably has bugs. It's good enough. Friday, check it in. Cross your fingers that QA doesn't catch anything. Why is that the norm? Why is that just the way we work? So if we've reduced people down to just that, then of course AI looks very attractive. And if we're reducing real intelligence to what a computer can do, that's the part that I'm not the biggest fan of. I think humans are much bigger than what computers are capable of. But if the workplace has been reduced to that, then they become interchangeable.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And so much has changed in the last year, especially when it comes to coding with AI and how much better it's gotten. I mean, it surprises me using Claude Code now versus maybe I was using a chatbot a year ago, but, copy and pasting in between the browser and the IDE maybe. And it's gotten so much better now. On the other hand, there's always this idea of like a 10x engineer who maybe didn't have people skills, but people overlooked it because they were just so fast and they're so good at coding. What happens now when AI can probably level the playing field technically for 10x engineers and other engineers that can now code faster? Do you think also that maybe makes it so that the people skills are more important? Or do you think it just means that it's not important for more people?
I mean, let's just give it that AI is going to get to perfection. So most people have never seen perfect software. Real intelligence has been unable to produce perfect software ever. I don't think anyone's ever seen perfect software. So AI is also software made by people. I think people forget AI didn't fall from the sky.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who made AI. So it has limitations because we haven't made a perfect system. And so there are people who believe that the imperfect computer and system will be able to create a perfect system, which, if you unwind that a little bit, you'll see the fallacy in that. But let's just say it was close to perfection, better than any other person could do. So then what's left? And what's left is making decisions. That's it. That's the only thing that will be important. So think about it. If you're Louis Vuitton, how can you sell a purse for $40,000 and a similar purse at Walmart's like $40? And you could say, well, they use better materials. They're not using $36,000 of better material because the people who make $40 purses have access to the exact same materials. Mm-hmm. So why is it $40,000? And the $40,000 comes from the designs that they make and the scarcity of the product and the mind share of what value is for people. So if everyone in the world has access to the AI that you speak of that can create near perfect software, as good as any other human that has ever existed, and now everyone has that, then the value of that is nothing. It's nothing. Everyone can do it. Everyone now has the perfect ability to craft a program. So then the value is now gone to zero for doing that type of activity. I will never pay someone to type in an IDE any code at all because this is just much better. So then what value is left? Your ability to make decisions. The designer at Louis Vuitton has a high value because they design things that are desirable. It's not the person who puts together the purse that is getting the $30,000 in this regard. That's not what's happening. So as an engineer, I'm not going to pay you for your ability to write code. That's out. That criteria is now gone in this world. It could be a 10 years from now world, whatever. I'm just conceding that point that it's going to get better. So what am I paying you for? So now, yeah, personality traits may be weighed way more than they're weighed today. Your ability to produce something stylistic, like how does your app feel? Do people try one app and then your app and say, whoa, this is different? It's like you go to one burger joint, like, oh, this is terrible. You go to another one, it's like, this is the best hamburger I've ever had. They both have access to the exact same ingredients. They both know how to make hamburgers. But for some reason, this establishment produces desirable hamburgers and they can charge 3x more for roughly the same thing. So that to me becomes the new value line. So the ability to write software is out, and there's all the other traits that go above and beyond what computers can do.
I like that point. As a software engineer, what would you say that we should focus on now moving forward, now that we're going through this AI shift?
My guess is probably the same thing. It's going to be a while because this stuff will break. There's so much existing software that doesn't even get talked about in this realm. So I would say for the next decade, you're probably going to be roughly being asked about the same things. These things will make mistakes. You're going to have enough skill to catch these mistakes. But if that world pans out, engineers are going to have to start thinking about ownership. You get in that job you get in these jobs at these salaries, that might be a wrap. Why? Because that's margin. And I don't want to give you that much margin if all you're going to do is come and talk to ChatGPT. I can do that. So I don't need you to share my profit if I can do it myself. So that's out. So then if you're an engineer, you still want to build software because there's more to software than writing the code, then you need to probably be the one on the ownership side. The challenge with that though is, why would I pay you $10 a month for your SaaS service if I could just generate the same app on my laptop and just run it on my laptop? Why am I paying you for a service? Right? So, okay, maybe ownership's out, but if you're an engineer, so let's strip the software part off of it. You're just an engineer. What can you build? Like, I'm a wood engineer. I'm a steel engineer. Doesn't make sense. I'm a civil engineer. I can build things for society. I can do bridges. I can do roads. I can probably help craft data centers. I can lay out blueprints. You're a civil engineer. So maybe some of us will realize that we're probably civil engineers and we will expand the type of material we can work with. So today it's zeros and ones, software, Python, Java, you name it. But what if we were to expand the scope? The same engineering mind that can think about and reframe problems, do they zoom out and start working on spaceships, warp drives? Right? Software is just one type of material you can work with. So I think as an engineer, and I think a lot of engineers do this, like the number of engineers that are musicians, that do knitting, woodworking, there's a lot of engineers that take that logic to other disciplines. So maybe I would probably try to optimize for broadening your scope, the type of things that you can build with your particular skill set.
Yeah. I also know as well. You're right. It's good to be able to apply it to different disciplines. Let's say if you were 5 years into your career, what would you want to be working on right now?
I was 5 years in my career. That means I need money. So all the people who have money, it's great what they're saying, but I need money. So if I'm 5 years in my career, I would be honest with myself and I would try to make sure that I position myself to make money with my skills. And so I would be a little afraid of AI because if I'm only 5 years in, I don't really know the upper bounds of everything, what it can and can't do. I would probably believe that it can at least do what I can do. So that's a problem. But I don't know if it can hit the limits of what's possible. So I will probably be a little bit of unsure of myself. So then I would try to find out. So I would do two things. One is I would try to be a historian, right? So I think if you were learning how to make music today, does it make sense to learn how to play the drums and the piano when you could just use software to create your tracks? There's probably value in learning how to play real instruments, even as a musician today, right? Because you could say, I could just load up my computer and just do virtual instruments. And it's like, yeah, you could. But I think a lot of theory can be found in physical instruments. Like some people that are, like classically trained or they have really strong taste for music, they don't like the quantization you hear in music where it's perfect. In real life, no one plays the guitar perfectly for 2 hours. It's not happening. It's going to be off a little bit. So to me, if I'm 5 years in my career, I'm going to go learn the history of computing. I'm going to learn how C works and how memory can be exploited. I'm going to learn how the kernel works. Just some of these old school fundamental things that a cloud provider may take care of for you today. I will still go appreciate those skills and try to learn the fundamentals. And then I'll also try to hedge myself on, I'm just going to learn everything about AI. If this is what people say is going to replace me, I want to really understand if that is true or not. So I'm going to learn those things and try to be the best user of those tools. And then I'm going to go hedge my bets.
Yeah.
5 years in, I love the idea of hedging your bet. Hedging your bet could be contributing to an open source project. Maybe you believe that AI should be controlled by people and not corporations. So you may start contributing to open source AI projects. So I would have a hedge. I would be a historian, and I would try to be a master of my craft and master the tools that are in front of me right now.
I love that advice. I also think it's just fun to learn and be curious, and it's great that we can do that in our career. I mean, there's so much to learn about AI, so it's such a fun time. And as we were talking about, people being able to be more productive with AI, I think that sometimes even I get a bit stressed and caught up about shipping a feature, doing things faster. It seems like in tech, things have always moved fast, but now they somehow seem to be moving even faster. A lot of people say with AI, you'll have extra time, but it doesn't feel like that sometimes, Even while AI speeds up our productivity, it does seem to push people to do more and faster. Did you ever feel this, and how do you best manage that feeling of always needing to do more?
Man, like going fast nowhere. Right? You get me in my car, I'm going to drive 90 miles an hour. And I said, to where? I don't know. I'm just going fast. It's like, it doesn't make a sense. So I think most companies actually struggle with where to go, not speed. A lot of these companies, you can give them all the productivity you want. Ain't going to build anything. What are you going to build? You're going to build a clone of your competitor? You're an insurance company. What are you going to do? You're going to build what you already have faster? What, like literally, it's like, where are you going? And I think that's the part where people forget, like, where are you going? So going fast doesn't matter if you're not going anywhere. And so once you kind of dial that in, then it's like, okay, what's the thing that makes the most impact actually? So some people like more code makes more impact. More code creates more liabilities, creates more attack surfaces, more things to manage. So what I'm trying to do and what I tried to do throughout my career is like, what's the minimal amount of work I can do to make the biggest impact? And people that just want to keep typing, you just give them work. They're just busybots running in circles. They like activities. I like impact. Sometimes activities lead to impact. So it's really just drawing two columns. These are activities. Writing code is an activity. If you could remove a piece of code and the system starts working better, which one would you rather have? So to me, I think that is far more important. And so if you can get into a position where you can find those things. So if you're an engineer that is just given tickets and things to work on, yeah, your whole world is optimizing for pumping out as much code to implement those tickets. Some of those engineers don't even ask why they're working on what they're working on. And then you got these other group of people who say, hey, wait. I know customers are asking for that, but should we even do that? That is also a part of the engineering process. So I moved to that direction. Should we even be doing this? It's not sustainable. It is dangerous for us. Only a subset of customers want it. And if we do it, it's going to throw everything out of balance. That to me, so I moved to that part. So look, if you're into activities mode, just know you're doing activities. And then ask yourself, where's the impact of these activities? And then I think you start to get into the right next set of questions. Where are we going? Because no point in going fast if we're lost.
Yeah, so always be asking those questions. I think sometimes it's easy to see. Sometimes when there's ambiguity, it can be a bit harder to understand if you're on the right path or not.
That is like almost the only thing that's important. Like think about it, it's like, hey, we have to cut off one of your limbs. Which one? It's like, whoa, stop. Why are we removing any limbs? I don't care how fast you can cut. No, Kelsey, we have the state-of-the-art laser AI-assisted cutting. As soon as we point it at a limb, it's off. Like, what? Yeah, like in 5 seconds, your limb is gone. It's like, okay, stop for a second. Do we really need to cut off one of my limbs? You're like, oh, now that you ask that question, wrong person. It's like, yeah, I don't care how fast you can remove a limb. Just want to make sure we move the right one. And maybe I want to like 5,000 opinions just to make sure. That's what I'm getting at. So to me, AI is magnificent. It's cool. It's fun to have, to be excited about something. But it's such a small part of the puzzle. I mean, just zoom out, folks. Writing code faster. I don't think was really truly ever the problem. It's the mess that we make. Sometimes writing code too fast. We got 10,000 people writing code at this organization and no one's aligned on anything. So when we put all the code together, we get incompatibilities, data inconsistencies. Now people's like, yeah, let's turbocharge that. But you haven't fixed the original problem. People are still not on the same page. We're going to make it go faster? I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you. How would you say if someone is in an environment like this, how would you say they can get out of it and start to work on things that have impact, especially if they're creating AI tools? What do they need to do to make sure that they are not creating a mess?
So like, hey, what are the best problems? So if you come to a company and you say, hey, I'm about to join a team. Let's say we're going to go work at Geico, the insurance company. And so Geico's like, hey, we sell car insurance and homeowners insurance is what we sell. Maybe some other insurance, but we sell insurance primarily to Americans. So there's 300, 400 million Americans. And there's other insurance companies. And we can only operate in so many states. So we have an upper bound. But let's just be imaginative. There's an opportunity for Geico to get every American car insurance, all of it, and there will be no competition. So we can do 400 million Americans maximum. That's max we can do. So, okay. All right. So then what are the top? So are you able to do that today? It's like, pretty much, yeah, we could do it today. If we stop today, we can totally do it today. We can do that. Great. So what else do we need to do to kind of hit these goals? It's like, well, we have customers that say it takes too long to file a claim. Great. Is that the most important thing at this company? Yeah. Filing claims needs to go from 5 days to 5 minutes. So, okay, that's the number one. So I've asked everyone. And I say, well, why is that the number one? It's like, well, Kelsey, when we can't file claims fast, people leave to go to other insurance companies. All right, I got it now. The number one problem at this company is to reduce the amount of time for insurance claims from 5 days to 5 minutes. So the next thing I'm going to do is not go to Claude Code. That doesn't make any sense. Why is it 5 days? So I can ask Claude, why is it 5 days? Claude doesn't know why it's 5 days. It doesn't, I guarantee you, I promise you, it doesn't know why it's 5 days. So you are going to have to go through the organization and say, can I see the process from start to finish? All right. You open the app, file a claim, something goes into a database. Some human looks at the claim. The human then has to make a decision on whether to approve the claim or not. And if they're unsure, they want to go see the damage in person. So I write down the whole thing. And I look at it as, all right, there's airline flights, there's all kind of decision making. So here's the process. And we can do it reliably and repeatedly with some mistakes. Okay, what trade-offs do I want to make? Do we really need to go see any of this stuff? It's like, well, Kelsey, if we don't, then there'll be fraud. Well, how much fraud? Less than 5%? If so, how about we try something? For the next 6 months, we don't go visit any sites. We just approve every claim. No airline tickets, no flights, no hotel stays, no wake up in the morning. And that can reduce from 5 days to 1 hour. It's like, well, how much would that cost? Like, well, given the fraud calculations, it'll cost us 100 more million in fraud, but no flights. And we don't have to pay IBM 100 million and Deloitte 100 million to come build this AI system for us. We just stop flying to sites. Or we can ask people to take a picture on their phone and say, if we ever do audit you later and you're lying, then we're going to remove your claim. So how about that? We'll have people send pictures to us and we'll trust that they're using their phone through our app. We'll just take a photo and we're going to reduce it from 5 days. All right. I wrote no code. Mm-hmm. I just said, we don't take any more flights. I just looked at the process and removed the big step. We're down to 1 day. Wow, Kelsey, you're a genius. That's real intelligence that I'm talking about. That's just real intelligence. And then if we get down to a part of the process where it's really the computer taking 5 days, then yeah, we can probably generate some code to try to speed up but there's no for loop that takes that. Once a machine gets the instruction, it goes. So that's why I'm saying, like, these AI tools, they're not solving that kind of problem. Mm-hmm. That's the way I would do. See, that's impact. Activity would be Claude Code, analyze our system and try to figure out why it's fine. It's like, what are you doing? I have a more efficient way than doing that.
it's the same old problem as it has been before. Just now everyone's trying to create AI products. So it just seems like a bigger problem, but still it's the same old problem again, just finding out where a product fits. And from what you just said, a lot of it is asking questions, being curious and listening. I had Joe Bita actually on the podcast, a couple weeks ago, and it's going to come out soon, but he mentioned specifically your gift for connecting and listening to others, especially in a world where not necessarily always the right person, but the loudest person in the room is heard. How did you train yourself to be more present and be such a good listener?
I don't know. I think when I was learning tech, I felt like I didn't go to college and I was just reading and learning everything. And also when I was around in my early 20s, I kind of learned how to respect myself. Like, hey, am I buying things to impress others? Or I'm buying things because I like it. So I used to ask those questions. Do I like this? Or do I like it because I think other people like it, therefore they'll like me more? Going through that exercise, I just learned how to listen to myself. So step one is, do you even listen to yourself? And I think a lot of people are afraid to, because it may not be on trend. Some of your thoughts may be terrible and need to be cleaned up. But I think for me, that early reflection, so listening to myself, I found the value in listening to other people. Like, what are you thinking? How do you feel? So it's not like, what do you think? I also want to know, how do you feel about this? Why do you feel this way about this? So now I'm listening. And also, I feel like it's like a good way to upgrade your own software, because other people have other experiences. There's no way one person is going to have the experience of 9 billion people. So when you get around someone that has some experience that you don't have, I always thought about it as like, wow, I'm about to level up right now. Let me relax for a minute, turn off all the distractions. This person's about to tell me how to do something. And the moment I learn how to do it, it's like playing a video game. You just leveled up. Like, wow, I can fly now. Well, I didn't have that ability before. So if you're going to meet Superman and they're going to give you a cape, why would that not be your full attention on like, well, hey, thanks for the cape, but can you give me any tips on how to fly? So when I think about a regular person, and I'm so happy I have it. I don't care if you're the CEO, junior engineer. I literally don't care. I don't even look. When people ping me on LinkedIn, if I have the time and they ask me a question, I say, hey, you want to jump on the phone? And they're like, me? Little old me? I was like, but I don't really care if you're the CEO or not. You're a real person. And the way you're asking this question, I can feel what you feel. And I know how scared and afraid you may be, how confused you may be. And if I can just give you a little bit of confidence, a little bit of clarity, and also you may teach me something about what it's like to be doing this kind of work right now in this moment in time. So I'm like all ears, I'm locked in. And I'm hoping that when I walk away from that call, your life's a little bit better and my life's a little bit better. And the world right now feels like there's so much many mega powers that an individual has no power, but you do have the power to at least do that part. To just be patient, look at someone, tune everything out just for that moment, just for those few minutes and say, you are the most important thing standing in front of me at this given time, and just be focused on that. And I think people really appreciate that. And it just reminds me and hopefully them that we do have some power and we can exercise it on the daily.
What you're saying, it comes across as being genuine and authentic. And maybe the loudest person in the room, even though they're loud, they sound so sure of themselves, it seems to come off as inauthentic. And I think people can kind of feel that a lot of times too.
I think it's the combination of being like loud and wrong together. You don't want to be loud and wrong for too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you're loud and right, great. Like, hey, danger, everyone should leave. Like, I want you to be very loud. Be loud as you can. Matter of fact, here's a bullhorn to increase your impact. So it's not just the loudest person in the room, but we want the person that's using their voice to hopefully have some experience. They've been training themselves. They've been objective. We hope that when they choose to speak quietly or loudly, that there's some substance behind it. What we don't like is when like a grifter shows up and they're really good at getting people to go in a certain direction, even on things that they don't believe. That's that dangerous combination. What we rather have is someone who's like willing to explain themselves and debate. Say, hey, you're loud, but I have questions. And I would like that person to be willing to explain why they're so passionate about this particular thing. And I think the loudest person in the room sometimes fails to do that. And then they get angry and they get louder and then no one else wants to speak. This is why I think a lot of people don't like that loudest person in the room, because I think a wise person knows to listen a little bit. They know to kind of listen, fill out the room, figure out the audience, and then they speak when necessary. And hopefully they have something to add to the discussion versus repeating things people have already said.
Yeah. Loud is okay if you can also listen. When you first came in, you didn't get a CS degree in college, and I didn't either. And that's how I started to create content, because I wanted to learn. So I started writing about what I was doing, and I didn't expect anyone to read my Medium blogs, but I was working on Airflow at the time, which a lot of people were having problems with, which was great because people started interacting with my post, which made me get more involved in software engineering, and it was great. I think that I love being a learner. I love being a beginner. I don't really get imposter syndrome at that moment. But what I do get imposter syndrome from is needing to be the expert. Did you ever feel that way when it shifted from I may be doing talks about learning about something to I have my own opinions about something?
Yeah, I forget who explained it well to me. I think I heard a really good explanation around imposter syndrome. Typically, this occurs when the environment you're in is hostile. When you with your friends and family, like think about like a Thanksgiving and you want to learn how to cook a dish for the first time. If it's a loving family and a caring family, they're going to be so proud of you to follow the directions. They're going to watch you cook and say, hey, pinch of salt, that's too much. A little less. Let me taste it. Ooh, you're almost there. You just got to add a little bit more to it. And you feel the encouragement the whole way. And then once it's done, people taste it. It's like, yo, it's not as good as Mom's, but it's 90% there and you feel good about it. And then you want to try it again. And at some point you might get confidence to remix the macaroni. It's like, hey, what's this other cheese in here? We don't normally smoke good or you'll love it. And so when you're in those environments, learning feels totally different. It's like, I have a daughter, she's 18 now, but when she was learning to ride a bike, and you're there and you're encouraging her and she's excited and you're excited and she gets to do it, she wants to go harder even if she falls. But when you're in the wrong environment, people yell at you, people expect you to like not need any training as if they didn't need any training when they started. These are the environments that make people feel afraid. I was watching like a little video where they had a kid and they basically did this little activity. The kid was like 2 or 3 years old. They stacked some chips and put them back down. Stacked the chips and put them back down. And they gave the chips to the kid and they made a bit of noise and the kid stacked the chips and put them back down. And then they brought a person in the room and the person said, all right, here's a different kind of chips. They stacked them and the lady in the room said, that's too much noise. Stop it now. I'm mad and I'm angry. And the child just saw that and was like, oh my God, stacking chips pisses this person off. I don't want no part of that. So when they gave it to the baby to stack the chips, they just kept looking at this person and be like, I'm not doing this because it's going to make this other person upset. When the person leaves, the kid goes back to stacking chips. This is a kid that's 2 or 3 years old. Mm-hmm. And I think adults have the exact same thing. So our environment that we're in could either be one that makes us have the courage and comfort to try something that's really hard, knowing that people are going to be there for us and make sure that we get picked back up. And there's going to be environments that punish us for mistakes, even when we're just learning. Once I learned that part, I stopped caring as much now. I say, oh, I get it now. These people don't have the ability to make anyone else better. They're junior humans. They ain't got it. And so for me, I was like, look, I'm going to be patient with it. I know I'm not going to be good at this when I start, but I guarantee you I'll be better tomorrow. And even if I never get good enough to keep this job, I promise you I'm going to be much better for the next job. So I looked at it that way. In order to acquire these skills, I have to start off somewhere. And I just know what it's like after a little bit of success. I'm like, yo, I know how this goes. It's going to suck in the beginning and then I'm going to get better. And so once you do that 2 or 3 times, going forward in my career, it became much easier to say, look, I already know what's going to happen. I'm going to download this software and I'm going to be terrible at it. So I shouldn't complain on Twitter on day one. But I like the method that you took with your career. And I think it's probably one of the most important disciplines in all of engineering, which is learning in public. Like when people show you the finished product, I don't know what good looks like because I only see the byproduct. Did you make a mistake along the way? Did you correct the mistake along the way, or did you just let it ride because it was within tolerance? And those gray areas cause a bit of confusion. So I love when people show up and say, hey, I'm just going to learn in public. As I stumble across issues, I'm just going to share those with you because I do think it's going to take millions of people doing that to cover all the edge cases. No single person can do that.
It's a good process, and learning in public is really good too. It helps reinforce it for yourself, and then hopefully also someone gets something out of it. How did you transition to also have your own voice? People recognize you, whether it's on social media, and they know your values. How did you develop that voice that you're so well known for?
When I think back to just like, so number one, finding your own voice is very risky because if people don't like it, that means they don't like you. And this is why I think people pretend, just sound like your professor or just sound like the other person, copy their style, and you can put it out and no one likes it. You can just change your style to something else, but no one will never know who you are. And so a lot of people feel comfortable with the stage name and not using the real name. And I remember there was at some point, maybe the early meetups. I remember like my first meetup, I just wanted to look smart. That's it. I picked a topic that was just going to make me look smart. I didn't talk about none of my background, who I was as a person. I probably tried to dress a certain way to appease the audience. And then at some point, I remember getting a little bit more comfortable. And for me, my process was drop the speaker notes. And when I dropped the speaker notes, I only remembered the parts that were important. Right? So I was like, well, what happens if you forget what to say? And my experience was, well, I always forgot the things that were not important. Now, if this is like a legal presentation or something where you have to cover all the bullet points, of course, you got to put that stuff on the slide. That's informational. But when I'm giving a talk, I'm not just trying to relay information. That's what websites, brochures are for. I think me bringing in the other component, which is my opinion. So my experience, my skill, and my thoughts on it equal my opinion. And so I might say, well, here's how I did it. And here's what I think about that. Now, maybe I did it wrong, but I'm pretty sure other people have done it the way I've done it. Here's what I think about that. And I think people have learned, what I found is that people tend to prefer an informed opinion over your facts. Python is good. Now, you can do that as an opinion, or you can state that as a fact. Or you could say, Python has 50-something keywords. All right, thanks for the fact. I could have found that out on the website. I have no reason why I'm listening to you. Then when you say, I like Python for these reasons, let me show you. And so I started doing more of that. Like, hey, you know what? I felt really good learning this new technology to the point where I was dancing in the room. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that worked. I'm so excited right now. I feel so good right now. And then I learned that, oh, I need to bottle up that emotional component. See, on the slide deck, there's no part for emotion. PowerPoint doesn't have an emotional holder. And so I took the emotion pieces. Oh, I got to keep that part. So remember, you got to get to that emotion. So that means in order to get to the emotion, you got to put people on the same story arc that you were on. Hey, I had this problem. Here's the problem. Everyone will look at it and start laughing. I know. But I tried to solve it this way. It didn't work. Then I tried to solve it this way. Wait for it. Click. It worked. Everyone starts clapping. Why? Because they have this same emotional attachment to the thing. So when I learned how to tap into like the emotional part of who I am, like that feeling of like, oh man, I'm not going to ever figure this out, to I figured it out and being excited about it.
Yeah.
And then concerned about the maintenance. And I take all of that, put it in there. I was bringing the whole person to the equation. And then I found the courage to do that at work and say, hey, look, we can totally do it that way. We could. I know we could. I believe you could. But here's why I think we shouldn't though. Like, let me just show you really quick. Here's and then people would say like, wow, I don't know what's going on here, but I feel good about where we're going. And I was like, oh, that's who I am. So let's make sure that I bring that to every equation. And the last thing I would say here is, in many ways, people give you permission in the form of courage to continue to be this way. When I go on stage and I'm just wearing my t-shirt and jeans, I'm using the same slang I would use around family and friends. I'm not using the proper terms for things. I'm drawing analogies from my childhood and from my preferred ways of viewing the world. And the audience tunes in, they lock in, and afterwards someone say, hey, that was the best talk I had ever seen. I really loved this part of your story, or I love the way you presented this information. You made the light bulb go off. That feedback loop was very important. I know people say, who cares what other people think? It's not true. You do kind of care. And the fact that that has been embraced, I'm not saying everyone likes my style, but it feels really nice when people come up to you and say, hey, I saw you on that stage and I like what I saw. That was the unlock for me to keep doing it forever.
A few things you said stuck with me. One was that you need to think a step further every time about what you're doing to create your own voice and opinion. I had this experience. I did it this way. How did I feel about it? And then what? I think that that's important for everything you do. Otherwise, you go along not making opinions and not really thinking deeply about what you've done as well. And also, I like the part of the emotion, translating that into slides. I think it really hit for me because I give talks a lot and I try to make them fun or interesting. I do doodles. But as you're talking about that, it made me realize that that story about how you felt using the tech and how it happened for you and getting people in on that emotion is probably more important than any slide or fun, cute little demo that you could have. I mean, demos are great. I know that you do a lot of demos too, but I'm saying that that feeling will probably last with them more than, just doing a live demo, for example.
That's the advice I give to all speakers, new and experienced. I ask them, how do you want people to feel? So if I'm going to give people some time to let them do a dry run, I just say, hey, before we start, how do you want people to feel when they watch this talk? And they're like, wait, what do you mean? How do I want them to feel? I was like, do you want them to feel inspired? Do you want them to feel a sense of urgency, scared, afraid, confident? And once I add that little part to it, they want to change the talk and say, oh, I didn't think about that. It's like, yeah, like when you watch a movie, how do you feel after the movie? That's a part of the game. And so then I really think it just up levels their storytelling.
Yeah, the best books and movies I've seen are the ones that made me feel the deepest.
100%.
So along with the slides, what rubric else do you follow? So you ask yourself, how do you want people to feel? And then how do you proceed to also create the slide or presentation or the story that you're telling people about some piece of technology or about people?
I don't recommend this style for nobody. So what I'm about to tell you, I don't recommend because it's stressful.
Okay.
Every keynote that anyone has ever seen has pretty much been 95% improv for me. All of them. Like KubeCon, I did this live demo. There was music in the live demo. There was a story arc. So what I tend to start is like, and someone said, Kelsey, the way you present is like a jazz musician. You improvise and no one knows you're doing it. You can get off track and come back. You can jump into a solo and get back to the original song. And I was like, oh, you know what? I think that's the right way to think about it. So if I'm going to do a presentation, let's say, I remember giving this presentation at KubeCon through 2017 called The Path to Serverless. Kubernetes community is all about containers and all of this stuff. And remember, I got 14 minutes. You ain't got an hour. You got 14 minutes. Got to get to the point. No commercials. And so I was like, okay, serverless is overhyped, but it shouldn't be ignored. I think the serverless community is onto something. Ability has to be part of our design of these platforms. And what we're doing in the Kubernetes community at the time was not that. We were just creating more Rube Goldberg machines so they have a point. But also, I think they were missing something, is that containers can be used in the world of serverless. But everyone's talking past each other. And then I remember playing with Amazon's Lambda as a Google Cloud employee. I was like, Lambda is much better than our serverless offering. It just is. Like, you can't lie about it. It is. It's great. But can I use a container with it? And it turns out you can if you're clever, right? They have this thing you can glue together and blah, blah, blah. Then I got a container to run in Lambda. I remember when I made that happen, I was like, oh, this is dope. Can I make Fortran run on that? Oh, it works too. I'm sitting here like, oh, they're not going to be ready for you, boy. And now, how do I package the story? And I remember I had just watched Hidden Figures. I was like, oh, you know what? That story arc about Hidden Figures and how they made their technology transition. Because a big subplot of that story was the mainframe being brought in to replace the human calculator. So I was like, this is a good start. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I got 3 photos. That's all I need. We'll figure it out later. So I got the 3 photos in the beginning, and I put together a little mini intro to the talk. And it's such a nice thing because then I wrote my app in Fortran. Mm-hmm. So like, wow, Kelsey, you brought it in from Fortran that goes with the theme of the movie from back in the day. And now I got this Fortran thing, and I'm like, okay, in the container world, here's what we would do. We will make it all complicated for those scientists to try to do their thing. Totally missing the point. And so I'm on stage just making this story up as I go, but I had all the elements. I had the Fortran app, I had the Lambda thing, and the night before, which I think is an important point, you got to leave a little room for greatness. Because if you try to script the whole thing out, you may not leave room for the night before, where you get inspired by something that has happened. You're walking around the conference to pick up your badge and you see the venue and it feels big and you're like, oh, I got to match the occasion. I forgot how big the stage was going to be. And so the night before, I was like, I got to add a little music to this. So I built this tool called Diana that took my container out of Kubernetes, moved it into Lambda. And when it was moving it started playing I'm Coming Out by Diana Ross. And the sound was coming through. It was so theatric. And I'm just looking at the people in the audience, like, you could just see people like, what is happening? Whatever it is, I want more of it. And the story arc just came together on stage, and it's a two-way dialogue. I think a lot of speakers forget half the talk is performed by the audience. And so as I'm giving my talk, I'm looking at the audience. I see when they're happy. I see when they're a little sad. I see when they're a little bit afraid. I see when they're inspired. I see when they write down those notes. And so I take them on this ride. Now I'm the dungeon master. I'm the one creating the scenario. They're on the ride with me. They put the phones down. The laptops are closed. And I know I got this thing over. So they're not ready for the Diana. When the Diana part hit, it's over for them. It's not even the best part. So I got it all queued up in my mind. Now I'm like the DJ on stage.
Yeah.
I don't need the speaker notes because I know where I'm starting. I know how I want you to feel. I know what I'm trying to accomplish. And I know how I want to wrap this thing up. So I look at the clock and I pace myself. And then if I know I'm rocking it, I'm slowing down because I know where the good parts are. You know what? 30% of that talk no one has ever seen because it wasn't necessary on the stage at that time. So I left it out. Talk in it perfectly and then just leave. And so that's it. So I just say when you do these, so the rehearsal process is very different then. Once I have the components, I'm in the shower just playing the talk out in my mind, walk on stage. I didn't know what I was going to say. So I looked around and it's like, my name's Kelsey. My mom gave me that name. And the whole room just got quiet and just reset. It's like, interesting fact. Because my mom inspired me when she learned how to touch type and I gave that particular story. And so the whole room was mine now. And they were ready now to go where I was trying to take them. So in the shower, I'm thinking about, as a person in the audience watching Kelsey's talk, how would I feel? What parts would make me say, oh, that was, okay, that part was hot. And so then we get off the stage and people come up to me, it's like, yo, my favorite part was this. And years later, people say, yo, you know, my favorite part was? It was this part. I still watch that talk once a year. I'm sitting here like, wow, okay. So that's my process. I want it to be something worth your time. It's part educational. It's part entertainment. It gives me my ability to exercise my philosophy and make a connection with the actual audience. So I take every talk as that kind of opportunity.
Yeah, that's a very famous talk. I watched it also. It's a really great talk. Was that the first time that you implemented that method? Was that for that talk?
No, it was like years prior. I just started. Yeah, so like the live demos was like, I'm just done making the slides. Show, don't tell.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what, let me just show people this and just try to make it as real as possible. And I remember the first time I played Tetris on stage, there was a talk, covers called Software Circus, right around the time Docker came out and Kubernetes had just got released. And I was like, I want to explain Kubernetes to you all, but I'm going to do it without any slides or live demos. And I'm just talking about the concept of scheduling. As like, but the best way I can think about it is like in DevOps, we pride ourselves on one-click deployments, right? You write a script. Ideally, you predict every scenario in the world, and you run the script one time, and everything should just work. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. And I remember I brought up a Nintendo emulator, and I played a real game of Tetris. So I started on level 0, and I clicked one button, and I walked away. And the first piece landed, and then pieces just started stacking on top of each other, and I lost. I was like, this is why you're losing. There is no way you're going to write a script today that can deal with every problem tomorrow. It's never going to happen, but this is what y'all are doing. And this is why DevOps is more like group therapy. And so I said, so what could you do better than that? Well, you have to actually observe the game as you play it. So in the Kubernetes world, it's a little different. In the Kubernetes world, we turn everything into some type of shape. Those YAML files y'all hate, you turn those into shapes. As the shapes come in, then Kubernetes takes a look and says, oh, this one belongs here. This one belongs here. This one belongs here. And then we go, and then I remember it was just my luck. There was a long piece that showed up. And then when the workload is finished and I moved the long piece and now I'm walking around the stage with all the confidence in the world because I know what's about to happen. And I tapped it over. Once the job is finished, Kubernetes clears the whole slate. All the memory and CPU is freed up for the next workload. That's the difference. And you just see the audience is like, we're done. That's it. A live game of Tetris to explain bin packing in Kubernetes. And so that's when I started taking these kind of little bit of risk of like, can these metaphors and analogies be brought to life? Mm-hmm. And if you're willing to do it and be patient, I think you can. So of course, every talk after that, you start to get a bit more of that.
You say that you didn't prepare and that you didn't practice your slides, but I would say probably more than people who just practice their slides a lot, you prepared a lot of the thought about it. You have a lot of thought that go into your talks. Maybe you don't have a line by line of what you're going to say, but that time that you don't do that, you spend thinking about what you're actually going to present and how people will feel.
Alexia, you made an important point that I hope people understand. When you talk about something you've been doing for a long time or you're actually passionate about, someone can throw you on stage right now. Mm-hmm. And you can give a talk right now with 5 minutes of heads up. It's typically when things that we're not quite sure we formed an opinion about, we struggle. I need some notes. I got to figure out what's what. But if someone said, I want you to talk about the best part of your life, you have 8 minutes. And if you're an experienced speaker, meaning you're not afraid to do a little bit of public speaking, you don't need no slide deck for that. You're going to pick a moment in your life and you're going to try to establish yourself and you're just trying to tell that story to people. That's how I tend to do it. I always tell people the work becomes before the talks. So when people say, hey, I don't know what I'm going to give a talk about, it's like, stop. We're not making contrived talks. We're doing the work, getting experience, and then we're taking that story of the work. And this is where I think people struggle. Oh, I'd never used this tool before. And it's okay to give talks about things you haven't used. You just talk about learning how to use them for the first time. That's totally fine. But that's why those talks are a little bit harder than the ones that's like, yeah, I use this tool, I got it production. I'm going to share a few things that I learned.
Yeah.
That's much easier than I never used it until last night. And here's the notes that I had. And I'm unsure what these notes were even accurate.
Maybe you don't know everything about a certain tool and you're presenting on it. But I think maybe that's a good indicator. It's a good indicator to yourself. Oh, I should actually dig in. And maybe instead of spending time reviewing everything I'm going to say, maybe I should actually dig in and learn about what I don't know about, what I'm unsure about, what I feel not safe to be without my notes about.
Yeah, or don't cram. Hey,
yeah,
I use this tool. This is the part I use for these reasons. These are the parts I don't use. And I don't use them for these reasons, right? Like I know it does this thing. I've never needed that part. Sometimes just saying that makes everyone in the audience go, ooh, I thought it was just me. I thought you were supposed to use that part. But you're saying you don't use that part? We don't use that part because we use something else instead. See, it's that level of honesty and transparency that makes these talks very unique. If you come up there and say, well, I use 10% of this tool, let me how to figure out how to give a talk about 50% of it and then just like learn to use it really quickly and just kind of present some facts. Look, it might be okay, but I'd rather you tell me I don't use that part. We do this instead. I learn way more from that kind of talk than the ones that just try to fill in the gaps with just random stuff that they don't really care about.
That's probably pretty common. I felt that I've done that before. And I think that this goes back to, people being able to connect and feel authenticity. If you're trying to act like you know everything, you don't. People can probably feel that. I think a lot of it comes from, like I said, like being a beginner, you're expected to not know everything. But sometimes when you get caught up and you think, I need to know the answer to every question, even though, by the way, what I get nervous sometimes when people ask me the questions after the talk, and I'll act like I don't know the answer to something that I do know the answer to. I just got in my head I need to know everything, even if they ask me something I don't. In the moment, I got caught up. But if I just had the mindset of, if I don't know it, I don't know it. And if I do, that's fine. Then you won't answer the things you know wrong as well.
I don't know. I don't use that part.
Yeah. I think getting out of your head is good in even just career and personal situations. Just being a little bit more unbothered. I mean, always caring about other people and being a good person, but caring a little bit less about if you mess up or what people will think about it.
There's 9 billion people. You just got to do your part. That's it. You don't got to be nobody else in that unique story. So when you say, I don't know, that's good. That's unique to you. Like, that's the thing I don't use. Matter of fact, do you use that part? Maybe tell me about that part. Okay, so now that I heard how you use it, maybe I'll go reconsider. I think that's okay too, to open it up and get to a thing that you do care about or just listening.
Because there's no way, even if I develop Kserve, that I have used every feature of Kserve, or that, for example, Bloomberg uses it the same as someone else. And maybe we have a feature, but most people at Bloomberg don't use it. So maybe I haven't used it as much. And that's totally fine. I don't need to know everything about it, but I think people do feel like they do especially when you're presenting on an open source project. But there's so many different parts to it and so many people contributing,
Yeah, just be a little bit transparent. I mean, even Superman can't deal with kryptonite. So it's hey, it's okay if you don't know all the switches or how your particular tool is being used by everybody. But I think that's okay. And I think it just helps, especially the newcomers that are coming in and say, oh, so you created it and you don't know everything about it? It's no, that's just not necessarily how it works. But I do think I have the ability to learn about it by listening to other people who do know how to do that particular part.
Yeah, that's a great point. So when all the clusters are spun down and all the code is deprecated, what do you want the Kelsey Hightower legacy to be for the people in the industry?
Honestly, I think that the statement that Joe Beda made, just the part where I'm willing just to be human and respect other people to the highest degree, regardless of their societal status. I've gotten every accomplishment that I ever wanted. Seriously, distinguished engineer. I've spoken in hockey arena in Germany. SAP owns a hockey arena, and I did a keynote in there. And there's cameras. I've done everything I imagined that I could do, and so I'm very comfortable in those accomplishments. But then, the ones that value me the most, the most, is when people feel like I actually connected to them in some way, because I know how important it is when different people come into your life and change it for the better. When I hear someone say, Kelsey, there was an interaction that you and I had that changed my life for the better, because who knows what accomplishments they're going to make. They could go and cure cancer. They could go do something far greater than I've ever achieved. But if I can play a little bit of a part in that, that's the part to me. That's the thing I think people will remember the most. One day, people will come to hate Kubernetes. It will be legacy. People will be rushing to replace it with something bigger and better, and that's fine. But I hope people remember the part where I was willing to invest in them to make them a bit better at who they would like to be, and then help them be able to accomplish some of the things that they would like to accomplish with a few new skills.
I love that. Instead of taking a call with someone, you could have written more code, got another ticket done. But in the day, all of those people remember you and you have a much higher impact. So I'm sure, that feels amazing standing where you are now. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for your time again. It was a pleasure having you on again. And I'm glad this time, because I remember last time I asked you at the very end, after asking you all these technical questions, I asked you, what do you wish people asked you more about? You said, I wish people asked me more about the human side. And so I'm glad now that I got to ask you a few questions about that.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for listening to Alexa's Input AI. And if you want to follow along with my new episodes, writing, content, everything I'm building, You can find me at alexagriffith.com, on Substack, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoy this conversation, it would mean a lot if you subscribe, share this episode with a friend, left a quick rating or a comment to help more people to discover the show and keep these conversations going. Again, I'm really grateful you're here. This podcast started as a side project for me a few years ago, and every listener who reaches out or keeps coming back reminds me exactly why I love doing this, and I love putting so much time into it. I hope this episode gave you something to think about, something to talk about. So always stay curious, stay grounded, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for your support. Thank you so much for listening to Alexa's Input AI. And if you want to follow along with my new episodes, writing, content, everything I'm building, you can find me at alexagriffith.com, on Substack, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you enjoyed this conversation, it would mean a lot if you subscribed, shared this episode with a friend, left a quick rating or a comment to help more people to discover the show and keep these conversations going. Again, I'm really grateful you're here. This podcast started as a side project for me a few years ago, and every listener who reaches out or keeps coming back reminds me exactly why I love doing this, and I love putting so much time into it. I hope this episode gave you something to think about, something to talk about. So always stay curious, stay grounded, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you for your support.